So now that we have written the function which would actually decode the data, let's go about like creating the UI of the application. Since the data is being decoded and we have created an instance of the top value that we created inside our structure. So let's just delete this for now, and we would have to create a list view for this, because it makes list view makes all the stuff like really easy to use, for inside of which we would actually give it some values. So first of all, we are giving it the value top, because obviously top is the only thing which contains the whole data inside of it. And we are using the my anime list underscore id, which we have given as an integer value inside of this results array, which you may have noticed as well. So this was the only reason to use this. Either way, we could have used rank as the id as well, since when we create this kind of list we need to do some give some id to Swift so that it can uniquely identify all the elements. So for that purpose you could have used rank as well, but we are separately using my anime list id inside of it. So now you just write item in the place of item. You can literally write anything, it's just a constant to represent the value. So now I'm just quickly creating a VStack and giving it some alignment. And now inside of VStack, I think I would add couple of text views. So text view would be for the title, would be for the rank. It would also be for the start date, and if anything else is left, I guess the type, whether the anime is of the type movie or a TV show or a special. So yeah, that's what we are going to do here. You can see item just represents a constant which helps us access the top structures value, top arrays value. So that's what we are actually doing here. So now we need to incorporate those values which we just had created. So let's just give them some modifiers as well, so as to make them look decent. So for that I'm using like title 2 font size for the text title, and I would just paste this 4 times, like, since I need 4 different values. So the second value would be actually rank, and rank is a type of integer. So for that purpose we are going to use string interpolation. And for those of you who have like don't remember like what was string interpolation, so you can just recall this right now. You use inverted commas and then a backslash and then brackets, and inside whatever you write it just creates it into a string. So that's what we have done here as well. We are using rank. Let's just give it some modifiers as well. For example, it should not be as big as title. Obviously that would not make sense, like it should the different values should have different properties. Let's just give it some foreground color as well. Numbers look really well in like green color, so I just gave them a green color. It's totally up to you if you want to give them what color. It's totally up to you here. So now we are just going about the anime type, and obviously I would change the font for it and the foreground color as well. And the last thing we have left is the start date. Remember how I declared start date as actually an optional string. So you would come across a really interesting thing. When you just write start date, it would throw us an error actually. It would say that you are using an optional here. You cannot just not give it any backup value. So for that purpose we are using this ternary operator and giving it a value none actually. So it would just represent blank if there's no start date. And now I'm just giving it a foreground as well. So I think foreground secondary works well. So yeah, that's about it, and we have successfully created our UI for now, like the basic UI. It just includes those text lines. Remember that we have still not used our image URL. I'm just making sure that my list is intact, and now we would obviously run our function at the end of the list. You have to appear this attach this modifier which says on appear, and once you are done with it, the app is partially complete. So it would run the function as soon as the list appears. And that's about it. And now I would show you what it actually looks like when we run the application. So yeah, I just made a simple mistake right down here. And now I would show you the result, that so far what we have built. There you go. So it actually quite looks decent, kind of, I would say. Like our function is working, at least for now. So the JSON decoding and stuff, we're done with it. And that's a really big thing. Like sometimes you can mess up really bad in these areas. So for now I'm just tweaking some things, and like I'm hoping to create an image, right? So I'm just embedding everything inside an edge stack, and let's just try to add this image property. It simply takes a string inside, and we have a string image URL, so it should work, right? It should load the images right beside the text that it's showing, and it would be quite easy actually. So let's just try it out, what happens when we try to do this. As we loaded a text, we are using the image for the same purpose as well. So now if I just run the app again, it would ask me to replace this, and yes, obviously replace that. And now we would see that what is the outcome of when we actually try to run this thing. And you just have to wait like 20 seconds more. Now you see that it has not loaded images. And one interesting thing is that when you just go to this debugger area, it would show the name of the images, and will show that it has not been found in the asset catalog. That means that images using this property cannot be loaded through an API, so we have to use some custom image modifier for that purpose. So deal with that in the next video. Another really interesting thing I wanted to show you, what happens when I don't put an optional here. Like suppose I did not see that start date is an optional while seeing my JSON. So I just remove this stuff for now, and I would see what happens when I don't use it as an optional, since some values are really not some having the start date thing. But let's see what happens. So when I would just run the application, it would take like 20 seconds again, I say. So it's showing a blank screen for now. I guess it's not loaded. Now you see that it has given me an error which is unknown error, which is what we actually wrote at the very last of our function. And I said that to you at that time as well. If our structure has some problem, then obviously this fetch error would chase, and that's what exactly has happened. So let me just quickly correct this thing now, and now that we would run this, it would actually work. It should actually work. It was working since till now, so obviously it would work. So that's what I wanted to show you. So whenever you are like trying to load some API, and if it gives us a blank screen, then obviously it's a fault in your structure in most of the cases. So make sure of the fact that which values are optional, so that you don't mess up at this point. Let's just quickly fix that image issue as well inside our app.